out with a fun little thing I'm going to do called a top five, bottom five. I have my top five things and bottom five things from the Tennessee game. So let's start out with the bottom five. At number five, I'm going to say the offensive line. I think this was on contention for the top and bottom five. It was a really interesting game from our offensive line. If you saw, in the start of the game, I thought they did a really good job between the 20s. Running was inconsistent but good. Montreal Johnson, I think he really showed a lot of promise. And I mean, he's a senior, so you already know all the potential that he has. So there's that. But then the passing game also, we got out of the pocket a lot, which really helps the offensive line. We definitely have some more mobile guys on the line, like a Cameron Waits. So there is that. But then the second half, that's kind of where everything fell apart. I feel like it was also part of the play calling, but you really saw James Pierce for Tennessee take over the game in the second half. It was just a fail for the offensive line. They got sacks. Lagway had to come in after the Graham Mertz injury. Not many holes for the running backs. Montreal Johnson goes down, so it's like I considered putting it in my top five, but ultimately had to put it in the bottom five. So our top five thing, Chimere Dike. I feel like Dike had a really good game. I feel like he kind of does this every single week where he makes plays that makes you go, wait, this guy could start at Alabama or Georgia. And I think he flies under the radar. You know, you get a wide receiver transfer from Wisconsin, and everyone's like, oh, who cares about him? He's from Wisconsin, had a decent yard, so that's whatever. His biggest impacts were in that fourth quarter. He had two amazing punt returns. He is currently second in the country, averaging over 19 yards per return in the punt game. So I think he's someone that I didn't expect that from him. But then he also caught the touchdown pass to send it to overtime. Caught some other passes in the game too. Had 74 yards, I believe, in that game. So I feel like he definitely deserves a spot in the top five, maybe even higher. At number four, it's the depth. We took Tennessee out in that first half. Then the offensive line we talked about, the defensive line especially, kind of get worn out. The safety position just doesn't have the depth. That's why we had someone like a Jordan Castell playing. Won't really talk about that. But I've said this before. The biggest injury that we felt this season has been the third string nose tackle Jamari Lyons. We rotate him more loosely, so third string kind of has an asterisk on it. But that was definitely the biggest impact that we felt. Top five, number four is going to be Jason Marshall. You know, looking back at it, I probably should have DK above Marshall. But Marshall had another great game. He made some solid tackles. There's a play. Man, I'm going to get to this other player later, so I don't want to spoil that. But he's the corner. He's running with a Tennessee receiver. Tennessee has some good speed on the outside. It should be a touchdown. Nico overthrows it maybe a little bit. But Jason Marshall's running stride for stride with him. It's really shown the improvement he's had since last season. I think he's definitely working his way up to a first, maybe even second round pick, or second, maybe first round pick, where they had him to begin last year. So you got to give a lot of respect to Jason Marshall for that. At number three on the worst, we're going to have the special teams unit. I mean, guys, last year, we've talked about this so many times. The Utah game, all throughout the season, there's been 10 people on the field. There's been two of the same number three. And it's just, you thought maybe that there'd be a lot of improvement this year with the special teams. We get the mats. We've actually had a decent year so far. But then Trace Mack misses the field goal in overtime. 48-yard field goal, I think it was. You can't be missing those field goals. And, of course, to end the half, there's the 12 men on the field that has the 10-second runoff that makes it only 3-0 instead of 6-0 at half. I mean, that's just something that we can't be doing anymore. No, Tony, you're right. We better beat Kentucky. Got to agree with my man Tony right here. Top 5, number 3 is going to be the quarterback play. We don't know the exact status of Graham Mertz at this moment, but I feel like both the quarterbacks played a really good game against a really good Tennessee defense, especially that Tennessee defensive line. Got to give it to Billy Napier a little bit with some of the play calling, really rolled to the strengths of this team. Graham Mertz had a classic Graham Mertz game. DJ Lagway, he did throw the one interception, and then it did take a little bit for us to even get anything on offense. But then obviously DJ makes the great play to send it to overtime. So I think you got to give the QB play. Graham Mertz even had some great mobile plays. He had more rushing yards than DJ Lagway did in this game. So you got to give that to them as well. Oh, brother. Number 2 on the bottom 5. Jordan Castell. Jordan Castell. He had such a great start to his Florida career. First play of last season, the Gators against Utah, we gave up a 75-yard touchdown pass. RJ Moten, the Michigan transfer, gave it up. Then Castell comes in, and the defense plays pretty much lights out for the rest of the game. Castell leads the team in tackles last season. Then we come to this season. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. He's just playing very soft. You saw it before Tennessee got their first touchdown. They are a 2nd and 10. They check it down to Dylan. They check it down. And Castell has the easy tackle. It's an easy one-on-one tackle that any other player on this team will make. He dives at his feet for some reason, and they get the touchdown in the next play, I believe. It's also throughout the game. Most of Tennessee's driving when passing, going quickly outside. You know, maybe this is the coverage plans. I don't know. They're just having Castell play so far back on their receivers and tight ends that they're just getting free 7, 8, 9, 10-yard plays on us. It's just something that we can't be allowing. And I hate to just call out the one player, but, I mean, we really got to prove on that. Even got to the point where I think we might have to start going with some backups. You got to think that someone like a Gregory Smith is going to go out there and show more effort than what Jordan Castell did. It's just not the Gator standard, for being honest. Number 2 on the top 5, the linebacker position. Man, coming into this season, if you asked anybody, there was one position that I was as high as you can get on this team about. It was the linebacker position. I remember Shamar James, top 100 recruit coming out of high school, had an okay freshman year. You know, it's hard to play linebacker as a freshman, especially in the SEC. So much physicality. And he had really showed promise. Last year, to start the year, that Tennessee game last year, maybe that defense was built on him. And then he gets injured. He injures himself the Georgia game before the game even starts. He also is facing some injuries before Kentucky, Vanderbilt. So he comes this year. He plays a really good game. He's played really solid all year. I think he's somebody that we're going to see at the next level. And then maybe someone who I was really high on, and I expect him to start, Grayson Pup Howard, my boy Pup. He may be even playing better than Shamar James. Pup is a sophomore. He came out of Jacksonville. I know a lot of Gator fans wanted us to get him, but he went to South Carolina. He then transfers from South Carolina back to Florida. He had a great game. You're always seeing him in every single run. He's always right there with them, making the plays. RJ Moten. I mentioned him when talking about Jordan Castell as a safety. RJ Moten has moved to linebacker. He just didn't have the speed that you want to see from a starting safety in the SEC. And he's moved to linebacker. I feel like his leadership and his more versatility at that linebacker position has been huge for us. And then maybe even the biggest shock, Jaden Robinson. He lined up a bit more on the edge. We know George Gums, the starting edge rusher, got hurt. And that's when you think maybe you're going to see the true freshman Aiden Shiles come in. But we actually throw out the sophomore, Jaden Robinson, got a bunch of playing time last year against Arkansas, where you could see how small he was for an SEC linebacker. But he comes into this game, he gets 2 sacks, I believe, and he has a really solid game. I think he has a really good combination of size and speed. Coming in, he was more known for dropping out and covering, but he's really shown that he's built his body up well to play in the SEC. So they're going to be number 2 on the top 5, and then number 1 on the bottom 5. I think it's pretty obvious it's coaching. I mean, what do I really need to say about coaching, man? Billy Napier, the play calling, getting scared, playing scared when DJ Lagway comes out there. Just lack of discipline on the team, some unnecessary holding calls, 12 men on the field. As much as I blame the special teams, as much as it's on the special teams, it's also on, guess who? Billy Napier and the coaching staff. I mean, it's just pitiful, really. And you're keeping a guy like Jordan Castell, who was number 2 on the bottom 5 list, out there. Excuse me. They're just keeping him out there for some reason. I don't know why the coaching staff does this. You got to make some changes. We see a player like Jack Pyburn that Billy Napier says should play more. What I don't understand is, how did you realize it this late? You're 6 games into the season. You were 5 games going into this game, and it took you 4 to realize that, hey, this Jack Pyburn guy needs to be out there. Just doesn't make sense. The staff is just a step behind on everything. I don't know why. It's just the speed of the SEC is too fast for him, I guess. When he was at that Louisiana Sunbelt level, his talent is so much more, because that's what he did really well at Louisiana. He had so much more talent that he could sleepwalk a little bit and then just win it. But then number 1 on the top 5, I got to give a shout out to the defensive line. I did talk about depth earlier as one of the number 4 on the bottom 5. But the defensive line played very well this game. Why am I thinking of Dylan Stewart? I just forgot the Tennessee's running back's name. I was thinking of South Carolina earlier, so I can't remember why. But one of the leading rusher in the SEC coming into this game. He does have a good game. 4 yards per carry isn't bad per se. But compared to what we've seen from this defensive line, it's just leaps and bounds better. We had 3 straight sacks on this one series when Tennessee got to the 50. That was a Jaden Robinson, George Gums, I think, had it, and then Tyreek Sapp had one. It's just early in the season, you saw it against Miami. Everybody was saying, oh, man, this Florida team, we were wondering about their pass rush, their edge rushers, and it was just horrible. But now, they come into this game. The UCF game, they had 4 sacks. This game, we had 4, maybe 5 sacks as well. I'm thinking that UCF last week may not have been a fluke, and it was just a precursor to what was to happen into that Tennessee game.